Okay, now that we know how to do isometric projections, let's practice that skill by creating another simple shape. It's going to be a book. And so to create a new component, I'm going to go to my components window and click the plus. And this is going to be a book, so I'm going to call it my book. I am going to look at my assignment where it shows me what dimensions I want for my book. Notice that I do have a top, a front, and a right view, and I'm going to draw those three things separately. But the parameters that I'm going to need are height, width, thickness, title, and color. So I'm going to go ahead and pre-add that. And there's two places where I can add a new parameter. One is at the project level, but I want to be able to have multiple books with different parameters. So I'm going to add it at that second plus. And I'm going to call them height, width, thickness, title, and book color. Okay, so they all by default use a number for that parameter, but I know that title is not a number, so I'm going to go to parameter type and change it to text. And then for book color, I'm going to go to the parameter type and change it to color. Okay, so now I can choose a color for whatever that book color is going to be. Okay, now I can start drawing. So it just makes sense for me to start with the book cover. So I'm going to add that. Okay, but my book cover, I could type in the dimensions of a book, but I actually want the dimensions over here. A typical book is about 8 inches tall and let's say 5.5 inches wide. So that didn't change the parameters for my rectangle. I have to actually choose that rectangle and then change that scale. So now instead of 1, it's going to be width and height. Okay, that made it really big, but I'm just going to scale that down so I can see it in my window. Okay, so that's really all I need to do to create the book cover, but let's go ahead and add some things onto that. And just to make it easy, I'm going to position it at the origin. So I'm going to change my position to 0, 0. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add my title. And usually it's not centered at the middle, it's centered above the origin. So instead of me typing in a title here, I'm going to go to my text component and go to the text property of that. And instead of me changing it here, I'm going to actually go to the ... and click Edit Expression. And I want the title from my component to show up there. So now I can type a title here and it's going to show up on the title. Okay, and then my other parameter, book color, let's go ahead and select my rectangle and scroll down to the fill. And then instead of changing the color here, I can either click right next to the color selector, or I can do ... to go to Edit Expression, and then I can type in book color. So now, since book color is black, I should change my book color to something else that gives me the color of my book. And I don't need to parameterize the color of my title, but I'm going to go ahead and change the fill so that it's white, so it's easier to see. Okay, now I have my book, and it's the dimensions that I want from my parameters. I want it to look like an isometric book, but I don't want to apply my transforms that I practice with my cube. I don't want to apply that to the rectangle directly because I want the whole cover to transform. So before I apply the transform, I'm going to select all my objects. I can do that in the outline view, or I can do it on the canvas. And I'm going to click Control G. The other way to do that after you've selected a group is you can right click and select group. Okay, now everything that I learned by transforming my cube, I can apply here. At group 2, I can select transform, and then on the right face, which is the book cover, I'm going to put in -30 and -30. I'm going to break my scale and switch it to 0.866. Okay, that looks like a book, but what's going to happen is when I get my other faces of my book, I want it to grow. Right now, it's not going to be able to look like a book as it grows until I parameterize or I give a more specific position, because it's just growing centered at the origin. But I'm going to have 3 other faces, so I really want that top corner to be anchored at the origin. So instead of us having to figure that out from scratch, we're just going to use the expression that's in Blend for the right face, and we're going to copy that into position. Notice that I don't want it just to replace 0, I want to replace the entire position. And then what that allows is, as this book grows, it's going to grow from the origin. And then when I put the 3 other faces in, it will be able to still look like a book. The other thing I want you to notice is on the rectangle, everything is 0 except for scale. I need to go to group to apply the transform.